Once a household favorite, Three's Company lit up American living rooms with laughter and charm, thanks to its unforgettable characters and classic comedic mix-ups. For audiences of the 1970s and 80s, it became more than just a show. It was part of a cultural moment. But behind the bright lights and studio laughter were stories far more somber. Tales of personal pain, untimely deaths, and quiet struggles that touched the lives of several of its beloved stars. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's go. Don Knotts as Ralph Furley. Jesse Donald Knotts, known to generations simply as Don Knotts, was born on July 21, 1924, in the modest town of Morgantown, West Virginia. At 55, he stepped into the lively world of Three's Company, 1979 to 1984, portraying Ralph Furley, the flamboyant landlord with a puffed-up sense of charm, a colorful wardrobe, and a misguided confidence in his romantic prowess. Though the role was comedic gold, it also served to reintroduce Don to a younger audience, following his iconic turn as Barney Fife on The Andy Griffith Show in the 1960s. But away from the lights and laughter, Don's life was far more complicated, shaped by hardship, illness, and emotional weight. Raised in poverty, he spent his childhood under the shadow of a father gripped by schizophrenia, a man whose violent outbursts, including threats with a knife, left young Don in a constant state of fear. As he aged, Don's health declined. He fought lung cancer and suffered from chronic pneumonia. His eyesight deteriorated due to macular degeneration, eventually leaving him nearly blind. Don Knotts passed away peacefully on February 24, 2006, at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. He was 81. At the time of his passing, his net worth was estimated at $20 million, earned over 5 decades of film, television, and commercial work. His legacy, though, is far richer than numbers can reflect, a life that overcame darkness to bring light and laughter to countless others. Suzanne Somers as Chrissy Snow. Suzanne Marie Somers was born on October 16, 1946, in California, and would go on to become one of the most recognizable faces on American television. Her portrayal of the bubbly and lovable Chrissy Snow made her a household name from 1977 to 1981. At the height of her fame, in her early 30s, Suzanne's sparkling personality and comedic timing captivated millions. Her childhood was shaped by hardship. Raised in a working-class family, she endured the trauma of living with an alcoholic and abusive father. At just 17, after he tore her prom dress in a fit of rage, Suzanne fought back, striking him with a tennis racket. Struggling to make ends meet, she was once arrested for passing a bad check. In the early days of her career, desperate to cover her son's medical expenses, she posed for semi-nude photographs. These images would later be published by Playboy, reportedly without her full consent, after she rose to stardom. Her most crushing professional blow came during Three's Company's peak. In 1980, Suzanne asked to be paid equally to co-star John Ritter. The network, ABC, refused. In response, they cut her screen time, isolated her on set, and eventually fired her. Speaking years later, she acknowledged that this bold stand for equal pay killed her television career at the time. Once at the top of the entertainment world, she found herself blacklisted and shunned. But Suzanne Somers was not one to fade quietly. In the 1990s, she re-emerged with Step by Step, a hit family sitcom, and reinvented herself as a wellness advocate and best-selling author. Her outspoken promotion of alternative cancer treatments, particularly bioidentical hormone therapy, sparked widespread criticism from the medical establishment. Yet she remained steadfast in her faith in holistic health, even if some feared it may have come at a high personal cost. Diagnosed with breast cancer in 2000, she underwent surgery and radiation but rejected chemotherapy, a choice that ignited public debate. For more than 2 decades, she lived with the disease. But in early 2023, the cancer returned. Suzanne Somers passed away peacefully at her home in Palm Springs on October 15, 2023, just 1 day shy of her 77th birthday. At the time of her death, her estimated net worth stood at $100 million, a testament to her determination, business savvy, and the unbreakable will that helped her carve out a legacy far beyond the small screen. John Ritter as Jack Tripper. As Jonathan Southworth Ritter, born on September 17, 1948, won the hearts of American audiences through his unforgettable role as Jack Tripper in Three's Company. When he stepped into the spotlight in 1977, he was just 28 years old, a lovable, accident-prone culinary student who found himself in one comic misunderstanding after another while sharing an apartment with two women. With perfect timing and physical humor that seemed effortless, Ritter became a television legend and a symbol of 70s and 80s comedy. Yet behind his signature grin and comedic grace was a quieter, more complex reality. Since childhood, Ritter had lived with coloboma, a condition in his right eye that significantly impaired his vision. But he never allowed that challenge, or the doubts of others, to deter him from chasing his passion for performance. His journey to fame was anything but smooth, and the price of that success took its toll. After nearly 2 decades of marriage, he and his first wife, Nancy Morgan, divorced. The grueling pace of his work left him physically worn and emotionally stretched thin. Tragedy struck on September 11, 2003. While filming 8 Simple Rules at Walt Disney Studios, Ritter suddenly collapsed, complaining of severe chest pain. Doctors initially suspected a heart attack and began immediate treatment, but his condition rapidly declined, and despite all efforts, John Ritter passed away at 10:48 p.m. that same night. He was just 6 days shy of his 55th birthday. The actual cause, aortic dissection, was later confirmed, a rare and frequently misdiagnosed condition that can escalate with frightening speed. His death sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. Those who worked with him felt the loss profoundly. Joyce DeWitt, his longtime co-star, described him as unforgettable and impossible not to love. The episodes he had completed were lovingly dedicated to him, and the tone of 8 Simple Rules shifted dramatically in the aftermath of his passing. At the time of his death, Ritter's net worth was estimated at $20 million, a reflection not only of his talent, but of a lifetime of hard work, warmth, and unwavering devotion to his craft. Norman Fell as Stanley Roper. Norman Noah Feld, known professionally as Norman Fell, was born on March 24, 1924 in Philadelphia. By the time he stepped into the role of Stanley Roper on Three's Company, 1977 to 1979, he was 53 years old. As the gruff, prudish landlord with a perpetual frown, dry wit, and a shuffle that became part of his comedic identity, Fell delivered laughter to millions. His on-screen avoidance of affection from his wife Helen became a running gag, but it masked a deeper melancholy that would mirror aspects of his off-screen life. Away from the cameras, Norman's personal life was marked by solitude and disappointment. He was married 3 times, but none of those unions lasted. His first marriage to Dolores Picus dissolved after only 4 years. 2 more marriages followed, both ending in separation as well. He had 2 daughters with his second wife and later adopted a son with his third. Though he made a living eliciting smiles and laughter, in private he was a quiet, emotionally distant man, often disconnected from those closest to him. Fame gave him recognition, but not the intimacy he may have longed for. As he entered his final years, his health began to deteriorate. On Thanksgiving Day in 1998, he became so weak that he could no longer get out of bed unassisted. He was taken to the hospital and soon diagnosed with multiple myeloma, a serious and incurable cancer of the bone marrow, particularly aggressive at his age. The disease advanced rapidly. Less than 3 weeks later, on December 14, 1998, Norman Fell passed away at the Motion Picture and Television Country House and Hospital in Woodland Hills, Los Angeles. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at $5 million, a reflection of a long, steady career that stretched from Ocean's 11 to The Graduate, and peaked with his Golden Globe-winning performance in Three's Company. Audra Lindley as Helen Roper. Born on September 24, 1918 in Los Angeles, Audra Lindley carved out a special place in television history through her unforgettable portrayal of Helen Roper. At age 59, she brought to life a character equal parts funny and quietly aching, a sharp-tongued woman stuck in a lifeless marriage, rolling her eyes at her husband's indifference while hinting at the longing and complexity beneath her bouffant wig and tired smile. From Three's Company, 1977 to 1979, to The Ropers, Lindley made Helen more than a comic figure. She made her human. Her journey to that spotlight, however, was anything but smooth. In an industry that often demands relentless sacrifice, Lindley once stepped away from her rising career to raise 5 children. The decision cost her years of opportunity and stability. After the death of her first husband, Hardy Ulm, in 1970, she was left to carry the full weight of single motherhood. Her second marriage, to actor James Whitmore, offered brief hope, but ended in divorce in 1979, the same year she left The Ropers. 2 failed marriages and the responsibilities of raising a family alone left her with deep reserves of quiet strength, but also the kind of weariness not easily shared. Audra Lindley passed away on October 16, 1997, at the age of 79. Her ashes were laid to rest beside her parents at Woodlawn Cemetery in Santa Monica. At the time of her passing, her net worth was estimated at $3 million, a modest sum reflecting a lifetime of steady work, if not always the recognition she deserved. Still, her legacy endures, preserved in the quiet dignity and subtle humor she brought to every role. Peter Mark Richman as Reverend Snow. Peter Mark Richman, born Marvin Jack Richman on April 16, 1927, became most familiar to audiences through his role as Reverend Luther Snow, the stern and traditional father of Chrissy Snow in Three's Company. When he took on the part in the late 1970s, between the ages of 50 and 53, his character embodied a rigid moral code that often clashed, sometimes hilariously, sometimes poignantly, with the carefree, unconventional spirit of the younger generation around him. Though best known for his long television career, few realized that before stepping into Hollywood, Peter was a licensed pharmacist. After losing his father at the age of 16, he followed his older brother's advice and pursued pharmacy, a path of security and stability. But the pull of performance proved too strong. He eventually traded the white coat for the stage, launching a career that spanned more than 130 film and television roles. Off-camera, Richman led a life defined by simplicity and steadiness. He married only once to actress Helen Landis in 1953 and remained devoted to her until his passing. Together, they raised 5 children, including Lucas Richman, an accomplished conductor. Unlike many in his profession, Peter's name was rarely touched by scandal. In his later years, as age and heart issues began to slow him down physically, his mind remained sharp. He continued writing scripts, engaging in thoughtful discussions about art and creativity with close friends, always the thinker, always the artist. Peter Mark Richman passed away on January 14, 2021, in Woodland Hills, California. He was 93. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at roughly $1 million. A modest sum, perhaps, but one that reflected the measured and meaningful way he chose to live, with integrity, consistency, and a deep love for his craft. Anne Wedgeworth as Lana Shields. Anne Wedgeworth, born on January 21, 1934 in Texas, was a talented and magnetic actress who left a distinct mark on Three's Company through her portrayal of Lana Shields. When she joined the series in 1979 at the age of 45, she brought with her a refreshingly bold and mature presence. Lana was a widowed woman unafraid to show her desire for companionship, confident, flirtatious, and refreshingly self-assured. Her character stood in contrast to the younger women on the show, introducing a more seasoned femininity that was both humorous and striking. But that same role would also become a source of backstage strain. Away from the set, Wedgeworth's personal life was relatively low-key, though not without difficulty. Her first marriage, to fellow actor Rip Torn, ended in divorce after 6 years. Together they had one daughter. Later, she remarried, this time to director Ernie Martin, and had a second child. Though she largely avoided public controversy, her professional life occasionally hinted at deeper frustrations. Despite her talent and a Tony Award to her name, her role on Three's Company was abruptly reduced. After only 9 episodes, she was gone. Wedgeworth later explained that she herself asked to be released from her contract, disheartened by how her character was being pushed to the sidelines without meaningful development. As her career progressed, she transitioned mostly into supporting roles, portraying mothers, relatives, and aging women with the kind of nuance and warmth that made even the smallest parts feel authentic. But behind the scenes, she was quietly battling a chronic illness, one she never discussed publicly. Eventually, it forced her to step away from acting altogether. She spent her final years in a care facility in North Bergen, New Jersey, far from the spotlight and the audiences who once admired her work. Anne Wedgeworth passed away in 2017 at the age of 83. Her death was quiet, much like the later chapters of her life. At the time, her net worth was estimated at around $1 million, a modest figure for a woman whose talent had graced both stage and screen, and whose contributions, though often underappreciated, were never without depth. Robert Mandan as James Bradford. Born on February 2, 1932, Robert Mandan was 52 when he joined the cast of Three's a Crowd in 1984, portraying James Bradford, the affluent and traditional father who strongly disapproved of his daughter's romance with Jack Tripper. Although the series ran for just a single season, Mandan's performance demonstrated how even a limited role could be transformed into something memorable in the hands of a veteran actor. Away from the cameras, however, Mandan fought a prolonged and deeply personal battle with cancer, a fight he chose to face privately. He never publicly disclosed the specific type of illness he had, opting instead for quiet resilience. Throughout his treatment, he continued to appear occasionally in guest roles on series such as Star Trek, General Hospital, and Days of Our Lives, returning to the screen during brief periods of remission. According to those close to him, he never allowed his illness to define him. On April 29, 2018, Mandan passed away in Los Angeles at the age of 86. His personal life was anchored by an enduring partnership. He married psychotherapist Sherry Dixon in 1963, and together they shared more than 5 decades of companionship, largely away from public attention. Their life together was peaceful and private, so much so that, following his death, his cremation was held in a quiet, intimate ceremony. Though he never rose to the highest tiers of celebrity, Robert Mandan carved out a long, respected career in both television and theater. His most notable roles, including his time on the satirical soap opera Soap and numerous stage productions, helped build a legacy and a net worth estimated at $5 million, earned not through fame, but through steady dedication to his craft. Irene Tedrow as Martha. Born on August 3, 1907, Irene Tedrow was 72 when she appeared as Martha in the 1979 Three's Company episode titled The Older Woman. Though her role was brief, her portrayal lingered. An older woman, stern yet vulnerable, layered with quiet sorrow and strength. It was more than a performance. It felt like an echo of her own life. Behind the scenes, Irene's world was shaped by perseverance. She married William Kent, a man who had fled the horrors of Nazi Germany to start anew in America. Their marriage remained largely private, without the flash of fame or scandal. They raised 2 children, Roger and Enid, while Irene juggled motherhood with the demands of a career often spent in the shadows, cast more often as a reliable character actress than a leading lady. The emotional and financial weight of that balance left its mark on her. As the years passed, the toll of her profession began to show. In 1989, Irene suffered a debilitating stroke that abruptly ended her time on screen. The final 6 years of her life were spent in increasingly fragile health, quietly receding from the public eye, just as the industry she once enriched moved on without her. Still, her contributions were far from forgotten. Irene built a legacy across more than 6 decades in television and film, with standout appearances in shows like Dennis the Menace, Perry Mason, and especially as the grandmother of Eleanor Roosevelt in Eleanor and Franklin, a performance that earned her an Emmy nomination at age 69. When she passed away on March 10, 1995, at the age of 87, it was due to complications from that long-ago stroke. Her estate was valued at roughly $1 million, not a fortune, but a testament to a life lived with quiet purpose. Like many of the women she portrayed, Irene Tedrow was strong, steady, and dignified to the end. Fran Ryan as Grace. Fran Ryan, born November 29, 1916 in Los Angeles, brought her signature blend of no-nonsense wit and rustic warmth to Three's Company in 1981, appearing as Grace at the age of 65. Though her time on the show was brief, just a single episode, she left behind a performance that captured what audiences had come to expect from her across 5 decades: sharp humor, grounded presence, and unforgettable delivery. Yet behind her familiar grandmotherly charm was a life shaped by profound sorrow. In 1949, Fran married Walter Kenneth Wayne. Just 2 years later, while carrying their first child, she received devastating news. Walter had been killed in a plane crash while piloting the aircraft himself. Still grieving, Fran found love again and remarried in early 1953 to Howard Schaefer. But tragedy struck once more. Howard also perished in a plane crash in Oregon only months into their marriage. The aircraft vanished without a trace, and for 15 years, its wreckage remained missing. When it was eventually found, no remains were recovered, only haunting personal items, a shoe, some combs, and a pair of glasses. Despite such unimaginable losses, Fran found solace in her craft. Her career flourished, with over 130 roles across television and film. She became a familiar face in shows like Gunsmoke, Green Acres, Days of Our Lives, and even lent her voice to animated series such as Hong Kong Phooey. Her net worth, estimated at $1 million, reflected a life of steady, hard-earned work in the industry. Fran Ryan passed away on January 15, 2000, from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. In 2004, her ashes were lovingly placed beside her mother's at the Holy Sepulchre Cemetery in Hayward, California, a final rest for a woman who weathered deep heartbreak, yet never lost her spark. Dick Sargent as Lloyd Cross. Born Richard Stanford Cox on April 19, 1930 in California, Dick Sargent appeared on Three's Company in a brief guest role as Lloyd Cross at age 47. Though the part was small, he brought his familiar charm and ease to the screen. Yet Sargent was far more widely recognized for stepping into the shoes of Darren Stevens, the second actor to play the role, on the beloved sitcom Bewitched, a role he held from 1969 to 1972. His gentle demeanor and quick humor made him a familiar and comforting face to American television audiences throughout the 1970s. Yet behind his genial public persona, Dick Sargent endured profound personal sorrow. For more than 2 decades, he shared his life with a longtime partner whose identity remained undisclosed, until tragedy struck in 1979. A sudden brain hemorrhage took his partner's life, leaving Sargent reeling. Though he never spoke openly of his pain at the time, the loss weighed heavily on him. Even as he continued working on screen, he channeled his energy into quiet acts of charity and compassion. In 1991, long before it was widely accepted in Hollywood, Sargent made the bold decision to come out as gay. It was a declaration not for his own sake, but for the younger generation, those struggling in silence. "I'm a retroactive role model," he quipped, his humor masking the vulnerability beneath, yet revealing a man of purpose and conviction. In 1989, Sargent was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Despite undergoing treatment, the illness gradually advanced. By early 1994, his health was failing. He passed away on July 8th of that year, at the age of 64. His remains were cremated in a private ceremony. Though much of his inner life remained hidden from public view, his career left an indelible mark. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at around $1 million, accumulated largely through his work on Bewitched, other television roles, and commercial appearances. Don Porter as Uncle Fremont Tripper. Don Porter, born on September 24, 1912 in Miami, Oklahoma, was in his mid-60s when he stepped into the role of Fremont Tripper, Jack Tripper's uncle, on Three's Company. Though his appearance was limited to a single episode, his calm authority and rich, resonant voice left a mark that belied the brevity of his time on screen. He was married to fellow actress Peggy Converse, a union that lasted for many years. Yet, like many enduring partnerships in show business, theirs weathered its share of strain, mostly due to Don's relentless work schedule. In the twilight of his career, he acknowledged having given up many precious things in the pursuit of fame and longevity on stage and screen. As he entered his 80s, Don's health began to wane. Battling heart disease, he experienced several minor heart failures that gradually pulled him away from the career he had devoted his life to. On February 11, 1997, he passed away at his Beverly Hills home at the age of 84. The cause was heart disease and complications from aging. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at around $2 million, earned through a lifetime of work across Broadway, film, and television. Dick O'Neill as Walter Nessel. Richard Francis Dick O'Neill, born on August 29, 1928, became a familiar presence on American television screens during the 1970s through the 1990s. At 51, he appeared in Three's Company as Walter Nessel, a role that, though brief, showcased the reliable warmth and steady strength that defined much of his career. With the look of a traditional Irish patriarch and a voice both gentle and authoritative, O'Neill was often cast as judges, lawmen, or no-nonsense fathers, figures audiences trusted. Yet, behind that solid, familiar exterior was a man who quietly bore his own private struggles. Off-screen, Dick's life was rooted in his long partnership with actress Jackie Shaw. The two met while performing The Sound of Music and went on to build a family together, raising 3 daughters, Megan, Jillian, and Caitlin. Their home life appeared calm, but the reality of O'Neill's profession often meant extended absences. He would spend long stretches away from his family while filming, a sacrifice that left its mark. In a rare moment of candor, he once reflected that his deepest regret wasn't a missed role, but the missed moments with his children, lost to time. On November 17, 1998, Dick O'Neill passed away in Santa Monica due to heart failure. He was 70 years old. His departure was quiet, without headlines or public spectacle, mirroring the understated lives of the many supporting characters he portrayed so well. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated around $1 million. Emiline Henry as J.C. Braddock. Emiline Henry, born on November 1, 1928, carved out her place on American television throughout the 1960s and 70s. Audiences may remember her as J.C. Braddock, Chrissy's shrewd and commanding boss on Three's Company, a role she played in her late 40s. Her time on the series was brief, but her presence lingered. Viewers already knew her as Amanda Bellows, the spirited wife of Dr. Bellows in I Dream of Jeannie, a role that spanned 33 episodes and showcased her signature comedic rhythm and expressive charm. While still actively working, Henry began experiencing troubling symptoms in 1979, frequent headaches, disorientation, and fatigue. The diagnosis was devastating, a malignant brain tumor. Though she underwent surgery, the illness advanced quickly. She passed away on October 8, 1979, just weeks after her final television appearance. She was only 50 years old. Henry was laid to rest at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City. Her net worth at the time of her death was estimated at about $2 million, a respectable sum that reflected decades of work in television and theater. Priscilla Morrill as Mrs. Snow. Born on June 4, 1927, in Boston, Priscilla Morrill became a recognizable figure in American television during the 1970s and 80s. In Three's Company, she stepped into the role of Mrs. Snow, Chrissy's no-nonsense, traditionally minded mother, appearing in her early 50s. Though it was a secondary role, Morrill's performance added a layer of authenticity and sharp character to the series. Yet her most iconic portrayal remains Edie Grant, the emotionally grounded wife of Lou Grant on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, where she brought strength, subtlety, and emotional depth to the screen. Away from the spotlight, Morrill led a reserved, quiet life. She married Paul Bryson in 1954, and while the couple never had children, they shared a long partnership grounded in simplicity. They lived modestly in Port Hueneme, California, far from the glitz of Hollywood. In her final years, Morrill faced a decline in health marked by persistent and worsening medical issues. A chronic kidney infection, something often manageable, grew severe, causing lasting discomfort and repeated hospital stays. Despite receiving treatment at Cedars-Sinai, her condition continued to deteriorate. She passed away on November 9, 1994, at the age of 67. In keeping with her wishes for a quiet farewell, her remains were cremated and scattered at sea. Morrill's net worth was estimated at around $1 million, not extravagant by entertainment industry standards, but a testament to a steady, respectable career grounded in craft, not celebrity. The heartbreaks behind Three's Company go beyond mere tales of sorrow. They are lasting echoes of the unforgettable legacies each star left behind. Is there a scene from the show that has stayed with you? Or an actor whose presence still lingers in your heart? We'd love to hear your reflections. Join us in remembering them. Follow now so you won't miss the next heartfelt tribute.